Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me for another Journey on the Fly podcast, where it's real simple here. We talk about fly fishing and life and fly fishing. And you don't always know what you're getting on this podcast, where we try to bring some interviews and then I'll have some monologues and stuff like that to bore you out of your mind. But the interviews are where it's at, connecting the dots, seeing how fly fishing affects our life and how life affects our fly fishing and all that. But keep in mind, you can find us on where all the best places that podcasts can be had, from Spotify, iTunes, you name it. You've heard it on every other podcast. Those places, go look them, go find, go subscribe, leave us some comments. Also keep in mind that Journey on the Fly is a fully licensed and insured guide service here in the great state of Pennsylvania. We are not afraid to take you onto stock trout streams, but of course we prefer those wild browns. So hit us up, find us at journeyonthefly.fish. You can put it in Google or just type the 3 W's first. So let's get at my guest, Joey Maxim. Man, am I excited about this interview. I'm not even going to do any more of an introduction. I'm going to let his story and his journey say it all. Let's get at it. All right, man. First question. Think hard about this one. Who was your childhood actor or who was your childhood actress crush, if you had one?
Actress crush. I don't know if I did have one. I'll tell you, I was a huge fan of the Home Alone series.
Okay.
I know that has nothing to do with a crush or anything like that, but oh my goodness, Home Alone, Lost in New York. I was all about that.
Yeah, and it's funny because no matter how many times you watch it every year, you're still cracking up with people and laughing, so it's good.
Oh yeah.
All right. How about, do you have a favorite book? Either one you've read, one you're reading, anything like that. I think that question tells a lot of people a lot about us, whether it's something in the past or something currently or whatever.
Well, I sort of have two books. One that I read every morning, and that's the Bible. But another book would be Prospecting for Trout by Tom Rosenbauer. Sort of when I first got into fly fishing, that book was pretty crucial in terms of where to fish, how to fish, what water, blah blah blah, that sort of thing. So I'd have to say that'd be number two.
Heck yeah, both of those. That's fantastic. I actually just lent out. So there's this retired Anglican priest that came into the fly shop that I work at, and he's like, I want to fly fish, and do you got any books? So we have some books on like the lending library, but nothing like to that. So I told him, I said, I'll gather some books and bring them in, and one of them was the Rosenbauer Prospecting for Trout. That is a fantastic book. You're spot on there. Very cool. So do us a favor. I know so one of the reasons I wanted to chat with you is from what I've seen from the world of the internet and your story. Not only is it moving, but it's near and dear to my heart in many respects, and it's where it's at today and what you're doing, which I want you to tell everybody about all that. But one of the big reasons that I wanted to bring you on, prefacing this, I'm not a big podcast. Maybe it'll go huge or whatever, and that's awesome. And if it does, the reason that I wanted to bring you on was I don't want your story and what you're doing to fade in the back. That things like that have a tendency, especially nowadays where everything's just driven by speed and the most current data that's in front of us on the internet. And I want people to know that. So, Joey, kind of introduce yourself a little bit and tell us like what's your journey look like in life to this point.
Awesome. Well, so My name is Joey Maxim, 27 years old now. Had to think about that a little bit, but 27. My journey in life has definitely been an interesting one. One that you couldn't necessarily plan out, right? I was born and raised just outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Grew up typical like 3-sport athlete, and my parents had a little bit of land, so grew up sort of hunting on their property and fishing in the local ponds or local streams, whatever, with my dad for fun, with friends for fun, sort of just something to do that we didn't have to listen to a coach or something, did real well in school, was pretty book smart, and just going through life. 16 years old comes around, November 19th, 2011, was leaving this girl's sweet 16th birthday party, and a friend was driving who was a little older than me, and we had unfortunately crashed and hit a tree, and so diagnosed with her traumatic brain injury and 2 collapsed lungs and aspirated and spinal cord problems, and sort of was going to be wasn't really going to make it after that one. I've been hurt multiple times playing sports, but it's high ankle sprain, or something you can sort of just rub some dirt on and you'll be better in a week or 2. You know what I mean? This one was going to take a little longer, and to what outcome we didn't know. But was down at Allegheny General Hospital on the north side of Pittsburgh for a little bit, and was transferred to the Children's Institute, which was in Squirrel Hill. I don't think it's there anymore, but haven't necessarily been back to Squirrel Hill in a few years, but was in the Children's Institute for a while, which is sort of like an inpatient rehab facility. It's basically like a hospital, but with occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy, you name it. They had it all, so was transferred there and spent a little while there. And when they finally transferred me out of the Children's Institute, which was a big exciting day, but still couldn't go back to high school just because my attention span was terrible. The frontal lobe of my brain, a couple different parts of my brain were pretty badly damaged. And I also had an open trach, so it wasn't right to just go back to school yet, but was doing outpatient therapy through the Children's Institute and whatnot, and my fine motor skills were terrible from the head injury, all the injuries, whatnot. So my dad actually went down to Cabela's down in West Virginia and bought me a beginner fly tying setup. So I actually sort of started tying flies before I really got into fly fishing. Had all these flies, and granted, none of them were good by any means. But one day my dad came home from work with a little 7.5-foot 3-weight Temple Fork Outfitter rod for some of the small streams of PA, and the PA Fish and Boat Commission does a pretty darn good job of stocking a bunch of those streams near your house or whatnot that are probably going to warm up by the time middle of June hits, and sort of trout fishing is going to be non-existent in there. But for those couple months, April, trout fishing opens, I think, the second Saturday in April. Yep. And so for those few months right there, it was a lot of fun to go and try to catch some stock rainbow trout, and just completely fell in love with it. Not only where it takes you, but whenever you're out there and you're fly fishing, you're not thinking about anything else that's going on in life. Had aspirations and stuff to attend West Point, and that was sort of out of the picture anymore, and couldn't play physical contact sports anymore. So fly fishing just about came in the perfect timing. And one thing led to the next, and I ended up working for the Orvis company at the Orvis Pittsburgh store, and started there off like as a part-time sales associate, and sort of worked my way up to a key holder and eventually the fly fishing manager of that store, and which was super awesome. Got me more and more into the fly fishing industry. Could talk about fly fishing every day. Super awesome. But it's one thing to talk about fly fishing all day. It's another thing to go fly fishing all day. There's a big difference. And so I sort of knew I wanted to be on the water, so to speak, every day if I could. And the summer of 2014, I believe it was, I was transferred from the Orvis store in Pittsburgh. They transferred me out to the Orvis store in Jackson Hole to help out here one summer, and fished every chance I could, and realized just how amazing the fishing is out west here, sort of near the Teton Mountain Range and the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, and how many awesome rivers and streams and no-name places that have some just amazing fish. And so they actually transferred me back to Orvis, Pittsburgh, after spending a summer out here, and went back, worked for the Orvis company for a little bit longer, sort of took care of some more medical issues when I was back there, and was sort of sitting in my apartment one day like, what the heck am I doing with myself? I need to be back out there. So I signed up, or sort of put myself through the Western Rivers Guide School that Worldcast Anglers puts on out here. Teaches you how to, so like a week-long class or course or whatnot. Some of the days you're in a drift boat rowing, some pretty big rivers with some sort of crazy hydraulics and stuff like that, learning how to row a drift boat, how to row it in terms of trying to put an angler in a good spot. And they do like an entomology course, and it was pretty fun. And sort of right after that Western Rivers Guide School ended, I started working for Worldcast Anglers in their shop. Was a shop staff kid, helped getting all the fishing trips out the morning of, and hanging out, just being more a part of the fly fishing community. It's a really small industry, growing a little bigger and a little bigger, but overall it's very tiny. So just being a part of that scene was super fun, and was asked to come back the following season, and was the outfitting manager, so doing a lot of the behind the scenes work, booking trips, and sort of working with different permits for guiding different rivers, blah blah blah. And then sort of found myself in that same scenario I did at the Orvis store. Like, hey, it's pretty cool talking about fishing all day, but I sort of want to be out there all day. You know what I mean? Talking about it's fun, but doing it's a whole different thing. So I had bought a drift boat, and Worldcast, I was fortunate enough, they hired me as one of their guides, and pretty much been rowing a drift boat for 4 or 5 months a year now, which is pretty fun. Here on some of the most sort of famous trout rivers in the world, from the Henry's Fork to the South Fork, and sort of the world famous Harriman Ranch below that, and the Teton River, and it's been a blast out here. Been good.
Right on. That first of all, I want to apologize that they took you from the great Orvis store in Pittsburgh and sent you to such a dumpy place out west. That sounds like
Yeah,
a terrible way to spend a summer.
yeah, when they said like, "Hey, would you want to go out to Orvis Jackson Hole?" I was like, "Wait, listen. Yes, do not ask anybody else, please. Let me just graduate high school, and I'll be on my way."
That's awesome. That's the one in the South Hills?
Yes, in the Galleria Mall.
Okay. You didn't happen to work with, this is a complete side question. Do you remember working with a guy by the name of Chris Reslinski?
Yeah, Raz.
Yeah, you know Chris. We
Yeah,
just
I know Chris.
nice. We
He's
just got back steelhead fishing yesterday.
oh, right on. Yeah, he's a great muskie fisherman too.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah,
I'll bleep
I
that
know
out so it
Chris.
doesn't go to his head.
Okay. Yeah, I know Chris and a bunch of those guys that used to work there, and maybe that still work there. I'm not sure, but yeah, I know Chris.
Very cool. Well, let me back up a couple steps here from what you were laying down for us. So first of all, like your injury isn't something to be just shrugged off because you know you can repeat the thing so well and explain it to us. I mean, this was a major issue. I mean, kind of explain to that. Like, what was? I know this is a silly question to ask, but your mind was working. I mean, what was going through your mind and all this? You know, at first.
Well, so the brain injury I suffered from is called global shearing. So global meaning all over, shearing meaning the axons in my brain had either ripped or shredded apart, and the axons in your brain are basically highways onto which thoughts travel, right? So over 90% of my brain was ripped and shredded apart and bleeding. So at first, I don't know if I had too much thought or anything necessarily when they got me to the hospital. You know, they put you sort of on so many different medications and was in a medically induced coma for a little bit. But at first, first thing I sort of remember was waking up in the Children's Institute in Squirrel Hill. And, you know, I sort of knew something had happened, but like didn't really know. You know what I mean? I thought it was just like, I got hurt in a game, you know, got knocked out or something. Here I am in the hospital, like, tell me how many weeks I'm going to be out for, if I need physical therapy or not. And let me get back out there type of deal. I didn't realize the extent of actually what happened. And to be honest with you, I didn't even realize it even when they transferred me to outpatient, you know, therapy. I didn't realize what actually had happened, and it took a little bit. To be honest with you, it was sort of whenever I, you know, got my trach out, and it was they keep it open for a little bit longer, just in case they were going, you know, something were to happen or whatnot. But it was almost the day when Dr. Henderson said it was time to cauterize my trach closed that I sort of realized, like, hey, I got pretty jacked up. It wasn't just a high ankle sprain or you know, a strained meniscus or something in your knee. It was a little more than that. Yeah, it was sort of it took a little bit, like I said, and it was a little bit of an eye opener. Like, oh my gosh, like something pretty major happened to me. And throughout sort of the recovery of a traumatic brain injury, you sort of go through this little like self-discovery research phase where, like, you know, once your brain starts working again, you almost start sort of looking up like traumatic brain injury stuff and blah blah blah, and this lobe of your brain affects this, and oh, that's why this is happening, blah blah blah. And that's when I sort of realized too that it was more than a broken ankle. It was more than like a stub toe. And, I had multiple different therapists and stuff, and they say I'm a miracle story and blah, blah, blah. And went through a lot of hard times. One of the biggest things in the recovery of a traumatic brain injury is finding the new you. Excuse me, you couldn't before a brain injury, you're living your life a certain way, right? But after that brain injury, you have to sort of learn to live your life in a whole new way. Whether that's writing lists down because you're short-term memory loss, recognizing that, you get overstimulated when there's more than, 5 or 10 people around you, and that you might have to, every half hour go take a little walk outside, calm back down, sort of that whole thing. It was definitely a good one. It was tough, but well worth it, I should say.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like, using sports terms, it sounded like, even though it was a long walk and possibly a lot longer walk than we all would like it to be, you're finding a way to walk it off through fly fishing and family and things like that. You mentioned something about your small motor skills being messed up, and you said your dad. I thought that was what your dad did, picking up that fly tying kit from Cabela's was absolutely, in my opinion, a massive step of wisdom, because I mean that's incredible. It's exactly what somebody would need in that case. Like that, what like give us a little bit, brag on your dad. Like, what does your dad do, and how much of an impact has he been in your life before all this, and fishing in the outdoors? Like I love that type of a story, regardless of how traumatic or not that our lives end up being. So tell us a little bit about your family and your dad, the influence there.
So my dad, without a doubt, is probably my best friend. My sister and mom are a close second, but my dad is he's a life changer. My dad's a pretty big dude, about 6'4", I don't know, 285 or so, 6'3", 6'4", 285. I think I got like some of the Polish in my mom because I'm still trying to hit 5'7", but needless to say, my dad was a rock star for me growing up. Through sports and school, and from going hunting right out the back door. He was always such an encourager, and still is. He would push me pretty hard, but that was all for the better. I loved every second of it. We both have a pretty competitive personality. Even like when we go fishing, we sort of have a scoring system against one another. For steelhead up at a Lake Erie or Lake Ontario or whatnot. You get 1 point for fish on, 2 points for fish landed. Sort of who's going to win that day is always pretty intense, but it's all for good fun. But my dad, I don't even know, to be honest with you, how he even thought or knew to go get a fly tying set up, because my dad didn't like fly fish until I did. You know what I mean? It's not like he had a background in fly fishing, and I think that sort of made it more fun for the both of us. We got to learn how to do this awesome thing together, from tying flies to how to tie on new materials or a new fly pattern, to actually going out and fishing that fly pattern. So I only really went back to school for about 3 periods a day, because I would have to leave school to go to outpatient, cognitive behavioral therapy, speech therapy, whatever type of therapy it was at that time. I would only go to like the 3rd period of school, and he would pick me up. We'd, run down to the Children's Institute or whatever. Go. He would, I don't know, sit in the car or sit in the waiting room or something. I'd, go through my therapy session, and we'd have all of our fly fishing gear in the truck. And we'd go hit, a local stream, primarily like Deer Creek, near like Harmerville, PA. And we'd go fishing for, however long I could really last, and catch a few stock trout, have a bunch of fun, and then we'd go home, and usually we'd like work out and go upstairs, go back up to the kitchen, whatnot, make a smoothie with like Chobani yogurt or whatever that's called, blah, blah, blah. And then we'd go back downstairs and we'd play ping pong. And we did that for a long time. And it was amazing. He's literally my best friend. Talked to him about everything. And don't get me wrong, you have some ups and downs with your best friends at times. There's a sort of a portion of time when you're recovering from a traumatic brain injury where that person who's recovering from the brain injury is just an absolute bear, aggressive, and would wake up with, crazy frustration, and, took a lot of that out on my dad, but he sort of understood and was there for me through it all. And I think that just sort of made our relationship better, to be honest with you.
Oh man. Thanks for sharing that, man. I love to hear when dads get down in the dirt with their kids and they don't give up. There's so many stories of, like, there's a disconnect, especially in the teens when it comes to parents, and it's a little bit of a specialty of mine and one of my jobs to kind of see that and get involved and mentor and things of that sort. And man, way to go, Dad. That's just awesome. Completely. So what do you think is like one of the biggest lessons that your story has at this point, and it's just unfolding in my opinion, man? You're 27. I'm almost twice your age. So I'm saying that for me, not you. What do you think some of the biggest lessons that to this point your story has kind of given you that you can kind of carry on and offer to other people?
One of the biggest things, my dad has sort of told me this ever since I was a kid, but nothing good comes easy. Nothing worth having comes easy in life. Hard work pays off. Hard work does not go unnoticed. It might take a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatnot, but hard work does not go unnoticed. One of the biggest things I think I take away from my dad is his work ethic. It is incredible. And I love that. I love that he showed me that, and that nothing good comes easy. Also, whenever you feel a certain way about something, never take no for an answer. Like when I applied to this Western Rivers Guide School and got accepted or whatnot, my dad looked at me and he said, "Son, people from Pittsburgh don't become fly fishing guides." But he's also told me, whenever you feel a certain way about something, don't take no for an answer. And I was like, well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be a fly fishing guide from Pittsburgh. And he looked at me and smiled ear to ear, and he said, "All right, let me know what I can help you with or whatnot." And, so some big lessons are never take no for an answer, and nothing good comes easy. Hard work does indeed pay off.
Absolutely. That is awesome. So I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm a hugger. And if your pops was around here, he'd be getting a hug from me because that's just awesome. Seriously. I just love it. Well, I'm going to back up one more time here, and then we'll go forward because you said so much that I could just. We need to sit around a campfire and chat some of this stuff up just without recording. Um, so, because I asked some of these bizarre questions and questions that kind of open things up, um, so you mentioned that the Prospecting for Trout was hands down a fantastic book, but you also happened to mention that you read a book every morning. You read the Bible every morning, and if you don't mind me asking, why do you do that?
Um, well, for faith, you know, there's one. I grew up in a Christian home, and went to church every Sunday, and my dad runs a faith-based recovery program. So grew up being a part of the church. And, as you sort of get into your younger teens, mid-teens, whatnot, that stage of life where, you start getting your own mind about you. And, I didn't necessarily fall away from faith in Jesus Christ or whatnot, but it wasn't like a center point in my life, right? And then November 19th of 2011 happened, a car accident, which I medically speaking, I really shouldn't have made it through. You know what I mean? That sort of should have been my numbered day, medically speaking. But someone had a bigger plan for me. What God ordains, no man can stop, and I'm a firm believer in that. And so I personally have to wake up, and I got to surrender my life every morning. Say, Lord, here I am. I'm yours today. Do what you want with me today. Whether it's taking someone fishing, doing a podcast, going to do a few, ski laps up at Grand Targhee, and Grand Targhee Ski Resort's, I don't know, about a half hour from where I live. Doing whatever, and just share, the good news with somebody that day or whatnot. That's the most important part of my day, realistically. My dad and I get to share scripture back and forth every morning to each other, and it helps encourage us and stay strong for that day. We've both had times in our lives where we've made mistakes and have sort of chosen the wrong path, but sort of having an accountability partner as close as your dad is pretty darn cool.
It sure is, man. And I appreciate you being open about that. That's incredibly important. And I'm not going to waste everybody's time getting into who I am. All you got to do is go check out a couple of my YouTube videos, and that'll unfold. But I am I am very biased when it comes to the Christian side and the Christian view of reality, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us, man, because it's true. It's 100% true, and you are a fantastic testimony of that. And I don't say this before we jump into the fun fishing stuff. Um, I want to make this incredibly clear. From having watched some of your video and or the videos and stuff and some other interviews and talking to you right now, it's incredibly clear that between the recovery science and your faith, that I would never in a million years guess that you have gone through, from talking to you, the injury and the trauma that you have suffered in your brain. You're articulate, you're incredibly intelligent, and you don't. I mean, it's just I would have never known. So I want you to know that's evident, and I think it'll come through to anybody that speaks to you. So
Thank you.
you're very welcome. So where did fly fishing? What did, like, bringing fly fishing into your world? What did that do, and how important was that, do you think?
Oh, it was huge. I mean, before the accident, if I had put my mind to something, consider it done. Things came easy. I was planning on, having this, going to a fantastic college and probably even maybe get an academic scholarship. And for a little while there, after my accident, hope was sort of lost. And that can be one of the most devastating things, I think, in someone's life is if you don't have hope, you're dead in the water. You know what I mean? Hope for the rest of the day, hope for your future, hope for where you're trying to take yourself in your life, and fly fishing gave me hope, that I could still do something. Like, it got to the point where my mom would yell at me if I didn't have two hands on the railing walking up from the basement, up to the regular level or regular, floor in the house or whatever. And it was like little things like that, that sort of not defeated me, but made me realize, like, oh my gosh, this injury is a lot worse than the sprained ankle. And so what fly fishing did, it was something that my dad and I had barely done, up until sort of that little bit after the car accident, point in my life. And, it gave me hope that, hey, I came out here and I caught more fish than my dad. Like, this is awesome. Like, whenever I'm out here, I don't think of a therapy session. I don't think how I yelled at Sue, my speech therapist. I don't think how I possibly screwed up my life by this car accident. I don't think about anything except for what I'm doing right here, right now, in the moment. And it was the most sort of relieving thing, if that makes sense. It almost like takes you out of reality for a second. I mean, yes, you're still in reality, don't get me wrong, but for when your wading boots are wet and when you get out there and you're making a good roll cast or a good overhead cast or whatnot, you finally get that drift to go right in between those two rocks, and that stalked rainbow eats your terribly tied egg pattern or whatever you tied up. Like, oh my gosh, to catch a fish on something you tied, like, it was this abundance of hope and almost joy that set in, like, oh my gosh, this is it. I can still do this. I can probably do this the rest of my life. We did have to, screw in just about every stud we could find into the bottom of my wading boots or whatnot. 'Cause, the doctor didn't necessarily like me walking on slippery, wet rocks, but, you can't live your life in a bubble either, if that makes sense. And,
Yep.
Fly fishing is pretty much where it takes you mentally for me. It's an amazing thing. You get to see so much awesome stuff, every day when you're out there. And it's a lifelong learning curve, right? You can never master fly fishing. You can get pretty darn good. You can get really good. But there's always another river or another fish or a new fly to learn how to fish, or, you got really good at, throwing a single-handed cast, like you grab yourself a double-handed switch or spay rod and go out and, send this reverse snap tee or whatever cast you want way out there. And there's always something new to learn or something to improve on, which is what sort of makes it fun as well. Pretty special thing.
Amen. And I love the fact that you can never be, you can get good at it, but you never fully grasp it. It's, I say to some people when given the opportunity to try to put the right expectations on newbies that If you find somebody that tells you that they got it all figured out, walk away, because fly fishing, I think, and you tell me what you think of this, fly fishing is the sport that keeps the honest person humble, because there's always something different. I mean, the streams are different from year to year, from month to month. Heck, from 100 yards here to 20 yards up, they're different.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So guide school. Now this is a relatively selfish question for me, just because where I am at the stage of my life. Worth it or not worth it?
100% worth it. I had sort of before guide school, I had bought like a 13-foot Rocky Mountain raft with a sort of customized fishing frame for it, for the Youghiogheny River down near Ohio Pile, right?
Mm-hmm.
And taught myself sort of how to row. Took my sister out one or two times, but what they teach you in guide school, in terms of reading water, not only for a fishing sense but for a safety sense. Water is, a very dangerous thing, especially when it's in great amounts. You know what I mean? So the South Fork of the Snake River out here in Idaho, coming out of Palisades Reservoir, in the early springtime when runoff's happening and all this snow's melting and coming down and filling up our rivers and streams and the aquifers and everything, that river can get up to, a little over 20,000 cubic feet per second. So if you picture 20,000 NBA-sized basketballs floating past you every second, it is a monster river. It's like the Allegheny River. It's big. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not as big as the Allegheny River, but sort of to put a little picture in your head, it's pretty darn big. So just knowing, the safety and how to maneuver your drift boat in and out of different eddy lines, and just the overall safety aspect of everything, and sort of appreciating how much power a river actually has. Sort of how hard you actually do have to work to slow that boat down. Because it's all done by two oars. We don't really use motors out here too much. So it's not like the White River in Arkansas or whatnot, where it's a lot of jets and whatnot. Just appreciating the power of the river is something that sort of has to be, in my opinion, almost taught to you a little bit. Recognizing that big hydraulic over there, and if you go sideways into that eddy line, and that pulls your hard chine down, and all of a sudden you have 50 gallons of water over your boat. Like, oh boy, you might want to start looking for that bilge pump real quick. That sort of type thing. But also just in terms of how to have a drift boat in different situations to put your clients or your buddies in the best sort of position possible to catch that trout on a hopper or on a salmon fly or on a double nymph rig, whatever it is. Sort of how to approach different spots, from gravel bars to different eddies and grassy banks or whatnot. I think it's pretty crucial. I know some older gentlemen out here that will do the guide school just for learning that safety of the river and how to truly row a drift boat. It's one thing just floating down the center of the river in a raft. Pretty hard to sink a raft. They're full of air. But a fiberglass 15-foot drift boat, unfortunately, it can go down somewhat easy. There's drift boats that sink every year out here. So just sort of having that safety as your first priority is pretty crucial.
Right, and you, especially like for us Pennsylvanians, now that you're out on that big water. Well, I mean, the Yawk's pretty big water, but it doesn't get too crazy turbulent until you get further down. But just thinking about that, you had mentioned the docks. You put as many studs in your boots as you possibly could because they didn't want you walking on um, crazy slippery stuff right away. uh,
Yeah.
but like I think about as soon as you said that, I think about all the Erie trips and how it can be like right now it's crazy low and clear, and fishing is just. I mean, it's not easy right now. The numbers are down on people pulling fish out. So if you hook one in an 8 hour day, you did something right. But how that shale and everything makes things so incredibly slippery, and people just don't realize it, whether they're new or they're unfortunately maybe sometimes arrogant and walk out there. Man, those are good. Not to be in fear, but like there's a terrible respect, if that's a good way to put it. If you think when it comes to like the fishermen and the water.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I see people go down all the time. Actually, when I was just back in November, saw a guy go down on 16 Mile. You know, waders filled up everything. And to be honest with you, it's happened to me so many times. I barely go fishing now without an extra set of clothes that I bring with me. Like if you do wade fish a lot, like chances are it's gonna happen. If it hasn't happened, I'm sorry to say it, but it's going to. I don't know one person that fishes a decent bit and hasn't fallen in. I've seen my dad fall in from Deer Creek to up in Erie to it's one rock moves out from under you, or you think you're about to step on something where you're going to get a lot of traction, and there's more current than you thought, and you're on this big shale, and then all of a sudden there's a drop off in the shale. You know what I mean? I see people go down all the time.
See, I'm a metaphor guy and an allegory guy. It's just, I know exactly what you're saying because I've been there, done it, and I'll definitely do it again. I almost went down this weekend because you get on those slippery buckets where it's nothing but pea gravel, and you think you got good placement, and then by the time you know it, you're back treading and you aren't going anywhere except down.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's I just there's so much metaphor in fly fishing, and it just that's why this podcast is so attractive to me, because hearing your story and hearing people's stories and how fly fishing has just intersected in their life, and in a sense very much been the mechanism, if you will, that's rescued people in all kinds of different scenarios. For me, it's a different type of story, and for yours, it's a medical story that seems to also come out in like you said, some patience and anger and motor skills. It seems to all kind of come full circle to you. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's why I think about it every day. You know, it is a little bit addicting as well. But yeah, absolutely. From motor skills to where it takes you mentally, to just like the power of being like outside. If like everyone in America could spend like an hour outdoors, not around a highway or a skyscraper or something like that. To be honest, I think the world would be a little different place. There's something about being outside and in a river or hiking through the forest or whatnot, that is almost like just like soothing to the soul.
Yeah, and I think like for me, just this and to interject a little bit into that, there's this. I think the best way, honestly, to put it is well, I'll just say it. The psalmist put it the best, that the heavens declare the glory of God. And there's something about making that connection. I had an archaeologist on. His interview comes out next week, who fly fishes as well, and he as cheesy as this catchphrase is, it makes a lot of sense that when you take we'll just call it for generic terms at the moment, like the spiritual and what nature seems to do for you in connecting the dots, as he said, it should make us question things. It should help us look a little bit deeper. Why are we so grateful? Why do we seem to be experiencing so much wonder and strength, the powerful? I like the way you put that there's a power that comes to being out in nature.
Absolutely.
Well, couple more questions, and I'll get you out of here for whatever you're headed to. So, what does life look now? What are you doing? You're guiding and stuff like that. What else are you doing? I heard word that you're doing something in an organization to help some people out.
Trying to start a nonprofit for kids with traumatic brain injuries. To let them know that hey, we can still do something. We can still go out to your local pond and catch some bass or some panfish or whatnot with friends and family, and we can still enjoy sort of the simple things of life, although we have to live it in a new way. You know what I mean? Because, like I said, I think hope is the biggest thing. Sort of in the early stages of your recovery from a traumatic brain injury that is lost. All hope is sort of lost. Like, what the heck am I going to do now? You know what I mean? I'm not allowed to play. Used to play soccer and basketball for 2 different teams and play lacrosse, and that's 5 different teams, and the whole bunch of my 7-day week just opened up with free space. You know what I mean? And you sort of get overwhelmed. So yeah, looking to start a nonprofit for kids with traumatic brain injuries. And this winter I have some pretty cool opportunities. I'm headed to Mexico for a little saltwater fishing coming up, and hopefully down to Argentina until about April 1st, and then come back to sort of the greater Yellowstone ecosystem here to Victor, Idaho, and get ready to guide for the upcoming season.
Nice. That's awesome. Is there anything that you can tell my listeners that we can be doing or can find you when it comes to the nonprofit and follow you somehow, so we know what's going on there, so we can get our hands dirty when there's more substance or whatever, to get our hands dirty in, because that's something that everybody can do something, and we ought to be when the opportunity's in front of us.
Just staying tuned via social media. That's sort of the new way to stay up to date on what everyone's doing. As much as I love it, I sort of don't at the same time. But social media would probably be the best way to stay up to date.
All right, man. And how do we find you on there? Is it, you got the organization there, or just your personal stuff?
Just my personal stuff as of right now.
Okay, awesome. And I'll make sure everybody gets that in the podcast notes when I put it all together. Well, brother, man,
Awesome.
I appreciate you taking time, and I really do. So you got any final words for us as we peace out for the night?
If you don't think you have enough time to go fishing, just go fishing anyway. Trust me, there's always plenty of time, whether it's an hour, a half a day, a full day. Just get out there and do it. You can read every book in the world about fly fishing, but ultimately you really don't understand what it's talking about until you're out there doing it. So if you have an extra hour on your Saturday or whatnot, find your local stream. Go catch some panfish, some creek chub, some holdover trout, something. Just get outside and enjoy where you're at.
Love it. That's awesome. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Man, what an inspiring, exciting, thrilling, and all those other adjectives that just swelled up inside of me as Joey laid out his journey. I hope that half of the thrill and the movement that I felt in my mind and heart hearing Joey's life unfold to this point, because it's not over, man. He's got a huge life ahead of him, and I'm so blessed to have gotten to chat with him on the phone and hear all of that. So I hope you enjoy it. I'm just going to let you go on that, man. I mean, keep your lines wet, keep your hooks or your flies in the fish's mouth, and I'll catch you on the next one. God bless.